Welcome into another episode of the Father, Son, and the Holy Buckeye podcast. I'm Sean. With me, as always, is the father himself, Rob Simzak. Dad, we are 3 weeks from Ohio State kicking off the 2026 season, so I'm feeling pretty good. It's starting to cool down around here in Oregon. Had some pleasant weather, but how are you doing on this fine August Sunday?
Very temperate, but I had to go 1,500 miles to find temperance. So it's we're in Boston seeing my other progeny, your brother, and probably three hottest days of the year were Thursday, Friday, and yesterday in Charleston. All 3 days, I think the I'm not a big um, heat index dude. I just want to know what the air temperature is, and I'll determine how hot it is. But all 3 days, the heat index was north of 120 degrees.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, I don't miss that at all.
It's hot in the hot tub. Yeah, it was hot.
Well, hopefully this can cool us down because I think we got the episode I've been most excited to get into all off season, and that's our 2026 Ohio State preview episode. We're gonna break everything down and set expectations. So if you are an Ohio State fan but not a sicko like us and trying to figure out what to expect out of this squad, I hope you're gonna learn some good information. And if you are a sicko like us, would love to know anyone's thoughts out there. If you agree with our take on the season, if we're missing anything. But yeah, we got a lot to get through. I was thinking we go position by position to start, kind of break things down, and answer some burning questions for each one, and then get into a schedule prediction. And I wanted to start off on the defensive side of the football today because I think a lot of Ohio State fans know what to expect out of the offense. We return a lot of last year's squad outside of the tight end room in Carnell Tate. So I wanted to start on the defensive side where I think we have some more, not necessarily question marks, but a lot more new faces. Sound good to you?
Yeah, it does. You just tell me I'm ready to go. So I'm loaded for bear. You tell me when to fire.
All right, sounds good. So let's start on the defensive line then. Um, and I am liking the way this group is shaping up. I think our at the defensive tackle position, I think we have a clear top four guys. Edric Houston is obviously the dude, potential first round pick in next year's class. Excited to see what he can do in his senior season. Then we have John Walker, who transferred over from UCF. He was a top 100 prospect in 2023, had 64 tackles, 8 TFLs over the last two seasons at UCF. He is 6'3", 310. And then we have James Smith from Alabama. He's 6'2", 315. Also a top 100 prospect in 2023, had 48 tackles and 10 TFLs the past couple seasons. And then I think our fourth guy would probably be Will Smith Jr. He's entering fourth year at the program. He's also over 300 pounds. He's had a strong spring and should have his biggest role of his career so far. And then at defensive end, obviously Kenyatta Jackson is our clear top pass rusher, but it is a little bit murky behind him. There's Bo Atkinson, who transferred over from UNC last year. He saw the field a decent amount early on in the year, but then didn't make much of an impact. So it was kind of resorted back to a backup role. But he looks good in the spring and should take a step forward this year. We have Quay Russo, who also transferred over with James Smith from Alabama. He had 50 tackles and 2 sacks, 2 INTs over the past couple years. And then Zion Grady, I think, is kind of the forgotten piece of this defensive line equation. He was an elite prospect out of the 2025 class, 6'4", 260, played over 100 snaps on defense last year. So he could be looking to take a step forward. So I think we got a clear top four at defensive tackle, clear top four at defensive end. Or is there maybe another guy that I'm forgetting in that equation?
You know the names better than I do. Here's I'm gonna go higher level and then drill down into the D line a little bit. I think the defense, while they've lost more people, we said the same thing in beginning of 25. We didn't have a podcast, but you and I were saying the same thing. They lost a lot of bodies, and you and I were really, really big on Patricia. Thought all the people bringing up to the Detroit Lions was silly and didn't a false comparison, a false data point because the Lions are before Spielman came in there and got Dan Campbell and got the GM in there and kind of grabbed the Fords by the scruff of the neck. The Detroit Lions were Midwest version of the Jets, owned by patrician family that didn't really care about W's and L's, and they thought the best way to run the team was stay away. So to compare Matt Patricia's time there to, we don't fault Matthew Stafford for not winning in Detroit, so I just thought it was stupid.
Yeah. And also, just because Matt Patricia wasn't a great head coach didn't mean he wasn't a great defensive coordinator, one of the
One of the
best
greatest
defensive
defensive
coordinators in the history of the sport.
Correct. And so, I think that defense, we had Knowles' defense in 24. We got Patricia's defense in 25. I think they have earned a comfort level with me anyway, as a fan, that they're going to be good. I mean, the biggest loss I think this year is Downs, but think they lost JTT and Sawyer. And you and I, again, didn't have a podcast last year, but we were beating the drum for Arvell at the start of the year. We were, if we were long Patricia, we were longer on Arvell because we knew what he was. We also were down very short on Knowles because he couldn't see it. He didn't see it. He stopped playing him after that Nebraska game. Guy gets one bad call go against him, which was a legitimate good hit, and he never saw the field again. It's just stupid. And now they had a good linebacking core that year, but that was just dumb. And so I think the defense is going to be good again. I don't know if it's going to be number one like it was last year, but I think the offense and the defense, we'll get into this, is going to be very, very rotational. They're going to play a lot of people. They're not going to rely on Caleb Downs to be on the field for 80% of the time. They're not going to do that this year. They're going to be very rotational at every position. And I think that cat, is it Russo, or however you say his
Quay
name?
Russo.
Yeah, I think he's going to be sounding like he's going to be Arvell. He's going to line up. They're not going to have him lining up with his hand in the dirt as much as you might have thought. He's going to play all over linebacker and defensive end. That's what it's sounding like right now. I think they lost a ton, but I think the defensive line's solid. I think you said it. Edric Houston, if his head's screwed on straight and he stays healthy, he's probably their best defensive tackle in the last 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, he might be. I guess my only concern, though, I mean, we'll get more into the other defensive positions here in a little bit, but I mean, to echo what you said, I do feel really, really good about the personnel we have on the defensive side of the football, and having Matt Patricia back only makes me that much more confident. But if there is a question mark I have about this defense, it's our ability to get pressure on the quarterback with only rushing 4. Because, obviously, Edric Houston's a dog. And Kenyatta Jackson might be an All-American this year. But if we're only rushing 4, we slide and the offensive line slides and doubles Kenyatta. Do we have another guy opposite him that can consistently win one-on-one against, above average tackles? And that's the only thing that I think might hold us back is I don't know if Quay Russo, if, he might be that versatile piece you're talking about, but can he just go beat a tackle one-on-one? Is Bo Atkinson going to take a step forward? And if we don't have the ability to consistently rush 4, I think that could make a potentially great defense only, pretty good.
Fair point. Fair point. I think Bo Atkinson was dealing with some injuries last year. He might have been a little bit overhyped coming in. I love Caden Curry. I think worst case, Bo Atkinson's Caden Curry. Worst case. I'm good with that.
I mean, that'd be a pretty good worst case scenario.
Yeah, I think he's going to be. I don't think he's going to be as good against the run as Caden Curry was, but I think he's got some giddy up, and if he's healthy, he's going to get to the quarterback. And I think those 4 defensive tackles, they're going to collapse the pocket from the inside. So go ahead and double Kenyatta. Then that means you're leaving Edric Houston and one of the other guys one-on-one, and they are going to smoke their dudes.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I do think if the other defensive end position doesn't really come into complete form, I do feel a lot more confident about this defensive tackle group as a whole than I have probably for the majority of the past, honestly, in a long time. Because I feel like John Walker and James Smith, we do have another like true pass rusher in there with each of them. But then another quick question for you. I don't know if you know this. Only 9 Ohio State players have ever recorded double-digit sacks in a single season. So, do you think there's a chance Kenyatta becomes the 10th this year?
Yes, I do. I think I I have a sinking suspicion his season is going to go one of two ways. He plays the run really well. He does. And you all you have to do, if you doubt me, go back and watch the Michigan game last year. He was a one man. He had a Jack Sawyer like game. The way Sawyer played in 24, Kenyatta played last year. He just feasted on Wolverine me. And he's either going to have that kind of season where he doesn't get a lot of sacks, but he just makes plays. And you kind of look, Ohio State fans, being the lunatics we are, will be like, well, where are the sacks? And he'll be light sacks. And you and I will be disappointed. But then when you run the tape, he's going to set the edge and make everything else possible for all of his mates. Or he's going to do all of that and have like 12 or 13 sacks and just be unfreaking blockable. And I'm betting on the latter. I'm betting he is not going to have a bad season. He's too good a player unless he gets hurt and he's hobbling. So it's going to go one of two ways if that makes any sense.
Yeah. As long as he's healthy, I think he's really going to be one of the keys to our defense. One last question before we move off the defensive line. I mean, it seems like we're both pretty confident in this group, but comparing them to the 2024 group and the 2025 group, where do you think they land in that? Because I think there's a really good chance that we are better than last year, but then I just think of how good the 2024 defensive line played on that CFP stretch, and I don't know if we'll be able to get back to that level. But where do you think we fall compared to the last couple seasons?
Good question. I don't know if the defense could be as good statistically for 12 games as last year's defense. Okay. I think Patricia looks at his defense though. He's a very smart. He's a mechanical. He's got a degree in engineering. He's really smart. I think he's got to go back and look at last year's defense and say, okay, there are some certain run plays, that we gave up to Jordan Marshall or a couple times to Illinois or a few other places. That's got to stop. And I'd like to see more pressure on the quarterback, whether that's through sacks. Sacks from the defensive line, rushing for, or from blitzes. Those blitzes need to get home more consistently, and I'd like to see more turnovers. So I think he will sacrifice some yards this year to get some turnovers and get his offense more possessions. I do. So I think statistically, they may not be as good for 12 games in the regular season as they were last year. And then I think they're going to be holy hell in the playoff. They're going to be tough to beat.
I just think with
They're
our
going to
schedule too, of how difficult it is. Like there is just zero. We could be a better defense this year and still not hold a candle to what we were statistically last year, just because our
Yeah.
schedule is that much harder.
Yeah, the schedule's that much harder. The easy games are in September and they're out of conference. Outside of that, they don't have there's not a lot of fluff. There's not a lot of empty calories in that schedule. I think that for that reason, the defense is going to I think it'll be better statistically than the 24 defense, we're splitting hairs here, right? Not as good statistically as last year's defense, but I think they're going to get the comp I see is was it the 16 defense that had like 9 defensive touchdowns? That defense was baller, but they didn't always just stone people. I see that in this team's future. And that, Sean, was a great defense.
Yeah, I mean, they were the only reason we didn't lose 70-0 to Clemson. That game was actually semi-respectable for 3 quarters. But
Yeah.
yeah, if there's one change I think our defense could use, it's getting more of those, big splash plays, turnovers, giving our offense the ball in the short field. But yeah, no, I mean, it seems like we're aligned. The defensive line is going to be really good again, no matter how you cut it. Moving over to the linebacker room, where obviously we lose Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese. But we returned Payton Pierce. I think he's the favorite to be our green dot, the play caller for this year. He was essentially our third linebacker last year. So I think it's safe to assume that he's going to be one of the starters, at least to begin the year. We also have Riley Pettijohn, who I talked about a few episodes ago. I think he's going to be the next great Ohio State linebacker, whether it's this year, the end of the season, or next year. I know that's coming, and I think he's going to be a significant contributor this year. We have TJ Alford, who's in his second season with the program. And if Riley Pettijohn, I think, is more like a Ryan Shazier prototype, more of that like outside linebacker or weak side linebacker with wicked speed who can chase plays down from the backside and also has coverage skills. I think TJ Alford is more of like the Sonny Styles prototype, where he's that big, meaty middle linebacker who can play north south and just punishes dudes in the gap. So Alford and Pettijohn are both going to be competing for starting time, as well as Christian Alliegro, who transfers over from Wisconsin. And because I am a sicko, I watched tape on him back in the spring. And honestly, I didn't love what I saw out of him. He looked to be out of position a lot, kind of lacked those instincts you want from a linebacker, but he can tackle. And you may have heard the story. He broke his arm against Ohio State and stayed in the game last year. So I think he's the most experienced linebacker out of our entire room. He's obviously tough. And I feel like a lot of the stuff I saw on film that I didn't like can be corrected with good coaching, which he obviously has now. And then Garrett Stover, obviously Cade's younger brother, third year at the program, and he hasn't seen the field much outside of special teams, but he was named Iron Buckeye in the spring, and that definitely carries some weight. So those are going to be the five guys really competing for playing time at the linebacker position. So let me start by asking you, who do you think our starting linebackers will end up being, and kind of what the pecking order is going to be out of these five guys once the season kicks off?
It's you. Well, I'm high on that cat from Wisconsin. I didn't watch a lot of Wisconsin because I am not that sick in the head last year, but I did watch the Ohio State Wisconsin game, obviously, and I thought he was a monster in that game. And then you hear he broke his arm and he's still in there. I just think I think he's also the type of linebacker that Laurinaitis just freaking loves. And it depends on what you mean by starting linebacker. I wouldn't be surprised, not a lot, but they have four linebackers on the field, one of whom may be Russo or however you say his name. So I think they're going to, especially early in the year, I think they're going to play a lot of dudes, a lot of dudes. And I just think sometimes they'll be that 4-2-5, but there isn't a steep drop off between the number one linebacker and the number 4 or 5 linebacker. So I just think they're going to play a lot of different sets, and they might play four linebackers they might be 3-4-3 or 3-4-4, something like that. I think they're going to do a lot of funky stuff on defense, and that's back to my point about Patricia. I don't know. Was it Payton Pierce? Is Payton Pierce supposed to be the green dot, or is it Riley
Yeah,
Pettijohn?
yeah.
All right. I
At
think
least from what I've
Peyton.
been reading, but it could change.
Yeah, it sounds like Peyton Pierce and Alliegro are going to be the two starters, but Pettijohn's going to get a lot of run. If their base is 4-2-5, those two will start. But I am not so sure they won't run 4-3-4, occasionally even go two down linemen and blitz, rush two linebackers. I think you're going to see a lot of different stuff this year from Patricia because he knows he's also a smart guy. He's going to self scout, self evaluate. No, he put a lot of stuff on tape last year, and he's going to change it up again this year and go very multiple.
Yeah, I mean, you. It's almost like you read my notes because I agree. I think Peyton Pierce and Alliegro are going to start, mainly because again the experience factor for both of them. They both are by far the most experienced linebackers from actual on-field experience. But I do think by the end of the season, Riley Pettijohn will overtake Christian Alliegro for the starting job. But again, to your point, like last year, we never really broke out of the 4-2-5 structure, and Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese never came off the field, and for good reason. They were both, top 10 picks.
Yeah.
But
So
and I
you
don't
don't,
think,
and there's a big drop off from those two to as good as those other guys played. As I saw a clip from Patricia at a press conference this week. He goes, you can have 6'4", 6'5" guys that are 250. They can run 4.40s. I want them every day.
yeah, and like Sonny Styles or Arvell Reese at like 70% because they're gassed was still better than taking them out of the game. So it was for
Yeah.
good reason that they never came out. And I agree with you. Like we are going to see, I think, a lot different setups, a lot of different shells this season. And whether or not we see 3 or 4 linebackers on the field a decent amount, or we really do just stick to 2, we are going to see that rotation. And, I think even Garrett Stover, who's likely to end up being our 5th linebacker, I think that he's going to end up seeing a decent amount of playing time. I don't think we have a first round pick in this room, at least for the 2027 NFL draft, but the depth we have, I think will pay off a lot down the stretch. And I think by the time we get into the playoff, we're going to have 5 guys that have all been through the ringer, 5 guys that are ready to go out and hit some people. And I think there'll be a much healthier room as a whole at the end of the season too. As a whole, I kind of feel more comfortable than we did last year with this linebacker room. Like, I'm really excited to see what they can do.
Yeah, yeah, I'd agree. It's going to be very multiple. You're going to have probably 18 to 20 kids that play a lot of snaps on that side of the ball, and that's a lot of dudes getting run time.
Yeah, I mean, it might even be more than 20. One last question before we get into the defensive backs. Who would be your bet to lead this team in tackles? Like, out of the linebacker room, I think Payton Pierce is the obvious answer because I think he's going to be a day one starter and unlikely to get unseated by some of these younger guys who might kind of come into form later in the season. But do you think it'll be Payton Pierce, another linebacker, or might it be one of our safeties that end up leading this team in tackles?
Well, Kai, that's a great question. Who led the team in tackles last year?
Yeah, Sonny Styles led the team with 82 total tackles.
82. That's not a lot. I mean, that speaks to
Well, it's interesting, actually, if you look at our tackle leaders, he led with 82, but Arvell Reese, Caleb Downs, Caden Curry, Caden McDonald all had between 65 and 70 tackles. So it was very spread out last year.
This year, leading tackler. That's a great question. I'm going to go with the transfer from Wisconsin.
Wow.
I think
Okay. That would be.
I'm going to go say something different.
If I had to bet right now, I honestly might go with Jaylen McClain because I just think he's going to be one of those guys that doesn't really come off the field. But I also think it's going to be similar to last year where we're going to have 4, 5, 6 guys. Probably no one's going to top 80 tackles this year, but we'll have 4, 5, 6 guys all within like 10 tackles of each other because of the depth, because of the rotation. We'll see.
100%. If I had to bet on someone's going to lead the tackle by a wide mark or a significant margin and be, like Chris Spielman was in his day, where just like every tackle made that day was, I think one game he had 33 tackles in a game. Think about that.
Jesus, I didn't know that.
He had games where he was in high teens and 20s and just crazy numbers because he was everywhere. I don't think, if I had to bet, I don't think anybody's going to do that this year. If it was, it'd be the cat from Wisconsin. That's just that's what I'm saying. I think it's going to be, again, like last year. Patricia wants a lot of dudes flying to the ball, and he wants to put them in a position to play fast, have the offense have hard time recognizing what they're seeing. Arch Friedenhofer, get him confused, and then just fly after the ball. And I think you're going to have a lot of kids with a lot of tackles.
Yeah, definitely. Honestly, I think there's a chance at the end of the year the linebacker room is the strength of this entire team, like offense included. But onto the defensive backs. I'll start with the cornerback position, where Devin Sanchez, I think, is getting ready to step into our cornerback 1 position in his second year at the program. He is the reason Bryce West transferred, and I think he's going to be our first true lockdown corner we've had since, honestly, Jeff Okudah. So I think he's going to have half of the field on lock. Obviously, we have Jermaine Matthews opposite him, who's the favorite to keep his starting position, but I mentioned it last episode, he has been getting pushed, so there is no guarantee that he is going to be a starter this year. And if he doesn't, it's going to be one of 3 guys that takes his job. It'll be Cam Calhoun, who transfers in. He's on his 4th school in his 4th year, which I know is something that you don't really like. And he only has 1 start over the last couple of years at Utah and Alabama. But he has been a key reserve who's seen the field a good amount of time. He's a really good raw athlete who just needs refinement. Again, something he's going to get more so at Ohio State than he has at any of his previous stops. We also have Dominique Kelly, who transferred over from Georgia after 1 year there. He was only a backup, but when he transferred, Georgia fans were really upset about it. They really wanted him to stay. So I think that speaks volumes about the kind of potential that he has. And then Jay Timmons is, again, kind of like might be the X factor in this room. He's a true freshman, but has been getting rave reviews. He's the third player to get his black stripe removed after Brock Boyd and Chris Henry, and he's been making moves. And the way it sounds is like if Jermaine Matthews comes off the field, it's sounding like Jay Timmons is going to be the one that pushes him out of there. But then at safety, I think it's a little bit more clear. Obviously, Jaylen McClain, I talked about him a few episodes ago. I think that he's going to have an All-American type season at safety. And then we have Earl Little, who spent 2 years at Alabama as a backup before transferring to Florida State. And he absolutely exploded for them last year, had 76 tackles, 4 interceptions. And he is kind of the favorite to step into Caleb Downs' star role, which is kind of that safety linebacker hybrid role where I know you mentioned Quay Russo is going to get moved around a lot, and I think the other player that might get moved around as kind of that chess piece will be Earl Little. So it'll be really interesting to see how they utilize him. And then there's Terry Moore, who is a really interesting guy because he originally played running back and then he started at safety in 2023 and 2024 for Duke, earning all ACC honors in 2024 with 71 tackles and 4 interceptions, but he tore his ACL at the end of last year and missed all of 2025. So this is going to be his first season. He's playing in 2 years. So it'll be really interesting to see how he gets ramped back up, but he's got a lot of potential if he can get back to 100%. And then the final player in the safety room, which again, I think is the forgotten guy in this entire equation, is Leroy Roker. He's in his 3rd year at the program. He played over 250 snaps last year, which really surprised me. But he's kind of been making some moves in the fall camp too. No one's talking about him, but he could be pushing for a starting safety position. So those are kind of the guys that are going to be competing for playing time. Let's start in the cornerback room. How do you see this shaking out? Do you agree that Devin Sanchez is kind of the clear cornerback one? And do you think Jermaine Matthews stays opposite him, or do you think he might get booted by either Calhoun, Kelly, or Timmons?
Good question. Again, you and I are not, we don't have a press pass, although I think with the overwhelming knowledge we drop on people and the incredible popularity of our podcast, we will be there next year on the sideline. But if not this year for a game pass, because we're deserving. But they're going to be the defense and the secondary. We talked about this before. The defensive line, the linebackers, it's going to be very multiple. And I think they're going to play a lot of bodies. I think Jermaine Matthews is going to be day one starter. That sure sounds like, and they know they can play him at nickel. And everybody assumed Earl Little was going to have the nickel or the Terry Moore. So Timmons sounds like he's all that in a bag of chips for sure. So day one starter, September, is Matthews at corner. And Matthews didn't have a bad season last year. He just got, you and I remember the big plays that he gave up, but he was in good coverage. He just didn't finish, and didn't get his hands up at the right time, or the guy was jumped higher than he could get. So I think he's going to start. He's definitely going to play a lot. And I think they're going to be very multiple because they have 4 or 5 safeties. A couple of them can cover, like Jaylen McClain can cover a lot of ground. I don't know if he's as good in coverage as some safeties, but Terry Moore was a borderline first-round pick before he blew his knee out for Duke. So if there's one guy in the secondary that I am rooting for, it's him. It's him.
Yeah.
I'd love him to have a great season. Sanchez is clearly number one. I think you're right that I didn't think for most of the regular season he was very good last year. I mean, he wasn't awful, but it was clear opposite Matthews, they went after him. Every team went after him often and early when he was on the field. And, if Iggy was out or someone else was out, they went after him. So but towards the end of the year and in the playoff, he was glue. And so if he continues that trend, he's clear lockdown one.
Yeah. I mean, again, like we're repeating this to death, but the depth I think is just the biggest thing that pops out to me. Like, yeah, we don't have a guy in the secondary that's going to be picked in the top 10 of the draft in 2027, but like it's a crazy weapon to be able to go to your fifth cornerback or your fifth safety and not feel like you're having a giant step backwards. And I will say, when the news first started being talked about how Jermaine Matthews might be struggling in camp, he might be getting pushed. It's no guarantee that he's starting. Ohio State fans, as they always do, kind of took this as a negative and be like, "Oh, what's wrong with Jermaine Matthews? This is a big problem. Our secondary is going to be bad." But when I was reading this, I interpreted it as a huge win. Like, listen, Jermaine Matthews was a solid starting cornerback in the Big Ten, and he did not forget how to play football over the summer. Like, the fact that he's getting pushed, I think, is a great sign for this really inexperienced secondary. The fact that a veteran like him is getting pushed, I think that just speaks volumes to the kind of talent that we do have in this room. And yeah, but like to your point about giving different looks, I think Devin Sanchez and Jaylen McClain are the only two guys that are going to be like never leave the field. Other than that, I think it's going to be constant rotation, which I know we've been talking about for all these position groups, but it's just it gets me really excited. And I think that there's a chance that even without Caleb Downs, that this secondary as a whole is better than the past couple seasons. But that leads me to the second question, and that's how badly do you think we will miss Caleb Downs? Because, he played his first preseason game for the Cowboys the other day, and I was watching his tape. Someone posted like every snap of Caleb Downs' first preseason game. It was just the camera on him, and it reminded me of how good he is. Like, even if he's not in the play making the tackle, he's having an impact because he's directing guys or he's just blanketing someone that doesn't get targeted, and stuff like that. And I feel like we may not have realized how much he kind of cleaned up for other people's mistakes last year. And again, love Jaylen McClain, think he's going to be an All-American this year, but that doesn't mean that he's able to call out the plays and communicate throughout the defense like Caleb Downs was. So as much as I love the personnel as a whole here, I'm curious what it's going to be like not having Caleb Downs really fix other people's mistakes. So how much do you think we're going to miss Caleb Downs? Is it going to be palpable, or are we just going to be another buzzsaw, shutting teams down?
I think we'll know in Austin the second week of the season. I tend to lean towards, I don't think we'll notice. And I think what could happen at Texas, from my lips to God's ears, they could move the ball. Ohio State could pick them off 3 times. I'd take that right now. Last year, they couldn't move the ball at all. I just think Jaylen McClain is more of a ball hawking, physical presence. I think Sanchez people are going to challenge him and he's going to get his. I think Timmons, whether it's Timmons, Kelly, Matthews. I mean, Matthews, we know, is a pretty good cover corner, and he's going to have his share of them. And I think Earl Little's going to be more of a blitzing sort of run support, just demon. He's going to, mark my words, he's going to cause a quarterback fumble early in the year. That's going to bounce up into like Riley Pettijohn's hands and be returned for a touchdown. So I just think, yes, we're going to miss him. Will it be palpable? I don't think we'll notice. Caleb Downs is one of one, but Earl Little, the guy from Florida State, just seems like, I just think he's going to create havoc, and he will get beat. Like, damn it, you make that play. Come on, we're going to do that. We never did that with Caleb Downs. We're going to do that. But then the next play, he's got to come up on a blitz and hit the cornerback fumble. We got it. And so that 60-yard gash play he just gave up, he redeems himself by creating a fumble. That's what I think. I think we're going to have that more of kind of a yo-yo where we may not have as many consecutive 3-and-outs. We might have a few more gash plays, but then the gash play is going to be followed by a turnover. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So I think kind of the too long didn't read of this whole defensive breakdown is we got a lot of new faces, and statistically, we probably won't hold the candle to the defense, to like the total yards and scoring defense we had last year, but we are going to be a lot more multiple. You'll see a lot more different looks and personnel packages out there. You're going to see a lot more rotation. We have depth at every single position. Yeah, you might see more points given up, but we expect to see more turnovers, more splash plays, more defensive touchdowns, and more short fields for our offense. So, statistically, we might not be the number one defense in all of college football next year, but I don't see a world where this isn't one of the 10 best defenses in college
Uh,
football.
I'm gonna go one. We'll go one step all better. They're top five defense.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Period.
I don't disagree. Like, we can maybe do this on our next episode where we talk about some other college football teams. But I will struggle to name three defenses that I think are going to be better than this one this year. But I will say the one thing working against this defense is with all the new faces, all the new roles. We have one
And
game to get ready before Texas, and then we are in the middle of our schedule. Like, there are no tune-up weeks. We got to get ready fast. So that's
yep,
the only concern is, how quickly can we figure out everyone's roles and how quickly can everyone be comfortable in what they're going to be asked to do on the field.
yeah. The only reason I would say they're top 10 rather than top five is that schedule. Playing Oregon, playing Texas, they're going to get those teams' best shot because
Yeah,
Texas
absolutely.
must win. Texas must win. The last time Ohio State played Oregon, it was embarrassing for Oregon. So they're going to get, the last time Michigan played Ohio State, it was embarrassing for Michigan. So they're going to get teams' best shot.
And I
Period. And
think
it's it.
exactly. With the way, I mean, our defense is not going to be a problem, but it is going to put a little bit more pressure on our offense. I don't think we can stroll out there, have 6 possessions in the entire game, score 20 points, and feel good about our chances to win a good number of these games. So I think that's a good transition over to our offense where we return a lot. We certainly had, our good moments last year, but in those final 2 games, it really exposed what was a whole season's worth of problems with our pace, with our run game, with our short yardage situation on our offensive line as a whole. So what we know about this offense is they need to be better, but I think they have the personnel and now the coaching staff to be better. So let's start off with the quarterback position. Obviously, Julian Sayin comes back. You and I have talked about him at length this offseason. Think he's going to have another Heisman finalist season. He added 15 pounds to his frame. He's going to be more willing to run. He's more comfortable in the system. He has a better offensive coordinator. Don't think we have to beat this to death. We know Julian Sayin is going to be really good, and we know the passing attack is going to be great. The only concern is can he open up defenses with his legs? He doesn't need to run for 3, 4, 500 yards, but he needs to be able to do what like Carson Beck did against us. There were I like 3 or 4 third and shorts where Carson Beck scrambled, stepped up into the pocket, and picked up 5 yards with his legs. It wasn't anything fancy, but that was the type of stuff that Julian Sayin wasn't doing for us last year. And so that's what he's going to have to improve on. So let me start there with what do you think Julian Sayin running the football looks like this year? Do you think that it'll actually be a part of this offense? Because I do have a theory that Ryan Day is, vocalizing how much he wants Julian Sayin to use his legs because I think he's more comfortable with him running the ball and exposing himself to hits because we have Tavien St as the backup in his second year with the program. I think Ryan Day is more comfortable with TSC back there. And, it's not going to be the end of the world if Julian Sayin has to sit out a couple drives or if he misses the fourth quarter of the Maryland game and stuff like that. So what do you think Julian Sayin running the football looks like this year?
We'll get to Tavian. I think that's one of the short. If you're talking about your backup quarterback, your offense is loaded, right? I think last year they were so focused on, dude, you don't need to win us the game. Just play within this system and we will win. And I think they beat that into his head relentlessly. I think that scramble against Michigan, what was it? On that long drive where they took 8 minutes off the clock, wasn't it like 3rd and 7 and he had an 8 yard scramble? I think you're going to see things like that. Like, dude, if there's 8 yards there and it's just, we're 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, take it, take it, take it. I do think if they do zone read, that play, and one of my pet peeves has been since Urban came up from Florida and brought the zone read with him. That play is only effective if the quarterback's willing to run the ball. He's got to be a threat. I think there's going to be a couple games, could be against Texas, could be against Oregon, could be against USC, where I think they're going to show him tape if he makes the wrong read, and they're going to beat it into him like, dude, If the defensive end does this, you need to do that, and you're not going to take a hit because there's nobody home on the left or right hand side of the field. And I think Arthur Smith, coming from the NFL, he knows how valuable it is to have a healthy quarterback. You know, teams don't, Eagles aside, generally get to the mountaintop with a backup quarterback. So I don't think he's going to put him in positions where he gets hurt, but I think they're going to be like, look, even Aaron Rodgers, you know, ran the ball. If it's there, take it. And then they're going to do some zone reads. They'll do that, and I think they're going to do some. Arthur Smith is I believe this. We'll see. I think he's a mad scientist in the offensive lab, and I think I said this early on. He's going to have 10 or 12 plays that all look the same, and the defense is going to be thinking, okay, we've seen this before. It's a run to the right side, and they do the exact same thing, and they go left with something you've not seen before. And then they're going to do that the next week, and then they're going to have this play and the play that went left, and then they're going to throw it to the tight end. So I think it's going to be, I would say he's going to have at least 50 rushing attempts this year. At least 50. I think he's going to have 2 to 3 a game, maybe as many as 5, depending on what the defense is giving him.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that's all you can really ask for from Sayin. And I agree with you about Arthur Smith because that's like so much of what calling plays in the NFL is. It's about building tendencies for the defense to recognize in one package and then doing the complete opposite out of that same package and just, baiting and switching. And that's not something that they coaches do in the college game really at all. And I think that it's going to be really easy for him to take advantage of college defenses and these college players that are going to be used to seeing one thing and then just, ripping the rug out from under them. The same way Matt Patricia was able to take advantage of college quarterbacks not being able to, figure out where pressure is coming from and the way he would use those mugs. I think that's why having these NFL guys as our coordinators is so valuable. It's going to be so easy to take advantage of these college players. So let me ask you about then. So we agree. Julian Sayin is going to lead a high-powered offense this year. He's going to be more involved with his legs. He's not going to do anything crazy, but he's going to elevate from last year. So I want to talk a little bit about Tavien St. And I'm curious. I guess first of all, do you think that there's a chance that we see any packages in like third downs or in the red zone where he comes in and offers more of a threat with his legs? Because I think this is something as Ohio State fans we've talked about. I feel like almost every season there's always like, oh, could we see different packages with someone else taking a snap at quarterback? And it's always like a maybe, but we never actually see it. So I'm skeptical that Ryan Day and Arthur Smith would do this, but again, we have a mad scientist as the offensive coordinator, so it's a possibility. Do you think that Tavien St. gets some packages for red zone and short yardage situations?
On August 16th, 100% no. Because I hear you're high on Tavian. They're either trying to kick Tavian in the butt right now by talking up Luke Fahey, or there's something of concern with him. And that's my biggest concern about the offense is who the backup is.
Yeah, you
And
were
can
beating me to it because that was the next thing I wanted to talk about because obviously Ryan Day talked about I think it was yesterday about how good Luke Fahey's been playing and now he's actually pushing TSC for the backup role. So that's where I was curious like is this just coach speak, Ryan Day either trying to kick Tavien in the butt or trying to give Luke Fahey his flowers, make him more comfortable with the program and kind of mitigate the risk of him transferring out? Or is this a sign we have something special in Luke Fahey? Or is it a red flag about Tavien's development?
right now, I think it's a red flag, but we're not there, so we don't know. And it's dumbfounding to me that you're not hearing the kid to transfer from Maryland. I thought he might be number 2, because he pretty well regarded. He sounds like he's number 4 right now. So that clearly says something about Fahey, but this could all just be they're 9 practices in. Pump the brakes, dude. Fahey's gonna be 4, and it's between St. Clair and Martin for the number 2 spot. And Martin's taking snaps. He's been in live fire in a meaningful game, so he's probably gonna be number 2. That's what I would have said a month ago. So I don't know. We're not there. I don't know that we'll know, but I am concerned. I'm officially concerned about Tavien Sinclair. But
Okay,
that's
wow. I'm
based.
not. I'm surprised. I'm surprised you're going that far because I honestly like. I think it's more coach speak. I think Ryan Day knows what he's doing. I think he's just trying to kick Taven in the butt a little bit. I will say I'll be concerned if he isn't named the starter for the opener. If he's either the third string quarterback or if he's going into that saying, yeah, the backup role is still up for grabs, then I'll be concerned. But I really think this is just coach speak.
You're
And come
fair.
season opener, he's going to be named the backup, and I don't think we'll have worries about him. But I do
Ju-
agree. I don't think that we will see like packages with him in the red zone and stuff. I don't think Ryan Day and Arthur Smith are in the business of taking off, potential first round quarterback off the field
No,
on really important downs.
no. The one thing, and I don't, these are kids. And so I don't want to dump on them too badly. I had a buddy, college buddy of mine, who was officially concerned about Legend Bay. And I told him, relax, man, relax. This is a case of where, with great power comes great responsibility. They just aren't going to hand everything to this kid. And, they're going to make him walk the fine line. This is what we expect out of you on and off the field. And this could be, my fears about Tavian are grounded in nothing but emotion. I don't have any factual data other than they're praising Luke Fahey and they're saying he's pushing for the number two. I would have thought it's over. You know, if Tavien St. Clair is the second coming of Mahomes, which is what some people have said, some prominent people, then it was over. The day Fahey showed up on campus, and it's not. So I think you're probably right. The rational part of me is like, nah, this is 9 practices, Rob. Relax. There's still 3 more weeks to the season. He is trying to kind of light a fire under Tavien Sinclair to get him, no, you need to do a little bit more during PT here at that position. And you're not there yet.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And honestly, I think these concerns about St. Clair versus Fahey, like, hopefully these are just problems for 2027 and beyond, because hopefully Julian Sayin has the season we're expecting, stays healthy, and doesn't come off the field. So as far as our starter is concerned, I got no worries about it whatsoever. Um, Onto the running back room, though, which could be interesting to see how this shakes out. Obviously, Bo Jackson and Isaiah West are going to be our clear top two running backs. Um, and then we have Jacoby Jackson behind them. He transfers in from Florida. He was a 3-star JUCO prospect in 2023. So, including junior college, he's actually in his 7th year of college. So, got a lot of experience. He had over 500 yards and 7 touchdowns at over 5 yards a carry in 2024 for Florida. But he battled injuries last year and didn't see the field much. He's a big, bruising, contact seeking back that reminds me a lot of CJ Donaldson, but I think he has a little bit more wiggle and explosiveness. So I think worst case scenario, Jacoby Jackson is, a really good third down, short yardage back, but I could see a scenario where he starts to push Jackson and West for more of an early down role. And then you mentioned him, Legend Bay, big time recruit we stole from Tennessee, getting Curtis Samuel, Dontre Wilson kind of comps in camp. And I think there's a real scenario we could end up seeing him catch more passes than get carries, because I think he might already be the best pass catching back out of this bunch. But I think it will definitely take some time to see how his role defines, because he is just a true freshman. But like I said, could end up being our best backfield weapon as far as catching passes. And then we also have Favor Aki, who's a 4-star true freshman out of Delaware, Ohio. Again, unlikely to see a significant role this year, but Lachlan has talked about his potential and how he has all the tools to become a 3-down dominant back at Ohio State. His frame needs a little bit more development, but with this 5-year eligibility rule, he could end up seeing some snaps and be given the opportunity to show everyone what he's got. And maybe by the end of the season, I wouldn't be shocked to see him maybe carve out a role if we have injuries at the running back room or he ends up being a lot better than we expect. So, first question I want to ask you is about Bo Jackson and Isaiah West. Because I'm kind of the assumption, I think this is going to be more of a 50-50 split. I think at the end of the regular season, I think Bo Jackson and Isaiah West will be within 10 or 20 total touches of each other. Do you see it working out like that? Or do you think Bo Jackson's going to end up becoming the bell cow running back and Isaiah West will be our clear number two? Because I know you are really, really high on Bo Jackson.
still really high on Bo. Don't think your Ohio State is yet at them played a game. So it's not the Trevion Quinshon two-headed monster yet, where those two guys, it's hard to say. I think Trevion was 1A by a nudge over Quinshon, but then you go back and you watch like the Notre Dame tape, from the championship game, and Quinshon was the man in that game. He was a beast. So and you didn't even mention Turbo Rogers, who is also highly regarded, and
Oh yeah.
but no one's talking about him. So I think he is probably likely transfer number one in the portal if the running back room plays out the way you said. I think it's going to be hit. I don't know. I can't peg a number of carries and touches and all that stuff. If Legend Bay is a better receiver than Bo Jackson, that's something. I think big game late in the season, Bo is your starter. There's no question. And I don't know that it's 50-50. He's going to be the guy that rolls with the ones. I think there'll be a little bit more of a gap between him and Isaiah, and I think they were praising Isaiah West kind of to get Bo amped up. Like, dude, he can ball.
Yeah, it has been interesting because Ryan Day has backtracked a little bit. Not backtracked on Isaiah West, but now he's talking about Bo as like the number one option. So it does kind of seem like his comments he made last week about Isaiah West having the best camp. I mean, they might have been true, but I also think it was kind of trying to kick Bo in the butt a little bit and maybe him being a little petty about Bo Jackson, threatening to transfer like he did earlier this in the spring.
Yeah. So Bo is going to be running back number one. I do think you didn't ask me this. Legend Bay. Yeah, I know Dontre always got his hype, and Curtis Samuel got a lot of hype, but they were very slow to break out. Curtis Samuel, and then Dontre was bedeviled by injuries. Legend Bay sounds like he's bigger and faster than either one of them. Day one. And it's rare that a running back in a room that's as talented as Ohio State's running back room gets a mention. It's like talking about some Spielberg movie you've never seen over Jaws or Close Encounters of the Third. Like, come on. He's got half a dozen movies that are better than the one you're talking about. No one's ever seen that movie that he made in film school in 1968 or whatever. So I just feel like he is going to make plays, and I think you're spot on. Receiving, jet sweeps, which is technically a reception. I think he's got Paris Campbell, home run, turn the corner. You make a misstep on your ankle, defensive back, and he is gone. And if he can
Yeah.
field punts or kickoffs, guess what? He's going to get his touches. And I'm thinking of like last year, Patriots' first game preseason. What did Tavien do? Returned a kick for a touchdown, right? I think his first touch. I could see that with Legend Bay this year.
Yeah, I think that's a good because I also wanted to ask you like who you think will end up again, assuming Bo Jackson and Isaiah West are the clear top two guys, who will end up being third in touchdowns and third in total yards behind those two.
I
And I
think
think like
Jackson, because he's going to
really,
get a lot of. He's going to do what that cap from the transfer from West Virginia did. He's going to get a lot of its first and
yeah,
goal
like
from
I
the
think
two.
I think there's a chance that he might even lead the team in rushing touchdowns. Like I think that's going to be
Yeah.
his bread and
Yes.
butter. But I do think like I don't see him kind of taking that step and pushing for an early down role. Like I think his final season stats might be like 45 carries for 300 yards and 10 touchdowns, something like that.
Interesting. I
But I
could see
think
them with him. With him though, with Jackson, I could see this. He starts, like he's the third back on the field, but then they just see something that he is just wearing the defense out, and it's 4 and 5 and 6 yards at a time, and the linebackers, it's the middle of the first quarter, and they're already peeing blood because he is just hitting them body blow, body blow, body blow, and they just lean into that for a little bit. And then the second half is Bo Jackson and Isaiah West for 20 yards, 30 yards, 40 yards, just ripping off chunk plays. if they get that going, I think they're going to let that snowball run downhill a little bit with Jackson. So I like the fact that they have a hammer like that. And he is good. He is not Herschel Walker. I mean, he's not that. I mean, but he is a good, solid back, healthy at times, playing for Florida. He looked like, who is this guy? How come I've never heard of him? And they they have, I think, established enough maturity in that room, not necessarily with the players, but guys, this is about championships. We're here to play a 16 or 17 game season and play into late January. Don't worry about how many touches you got at Ball State. Worry about how many touches you get when we have our revenge game against Miami in the playoffs.
Yeah. What I think will be more likely with the distribution of carries among these four guys, like I don't think we're gonna see a lot of games where it's like Bo Jackson gets 13 carries, Isaiah West gets 10, Jacoby Jackson
No,
gets
no,
8, and
exactly.
Legend Bay gets 5. Like I think they'll rotate. Like we're gonna have a couple, like Bo Jackson's gonna have a couple games where he goes nuclear. Isaiah West is gonna have a game where he's the guy, and I'm sure Jacoby Jackson is gonna have a game or two where he's really the guy. So I think it's gonna be more of a game to game rotation of who's kind of carrying everything, because I think that's something that Arthur Smith brings from the NFL too, is load management. That's a very big thing for running backs in the NFL, and I think he's going to understand how to keep these guys all healthy so they're ready to be at their best in December. And then I think with Legend Bay, I think I don't think he'll have a big role early in the season, but I think there's going to be one game later in the season. Maybe it's Maryland a couple weeks before our bye week. Maybe it is the USC game coming out of that bye. But I think once the calendar flips to November, I think we're going to see Legend Bay get unleashed. And I think that like he might only have like 10 touches in the first half of the season, but I think by the time the playoff rolls around, he's going to be an integral part of our offense. And I
Oh
think
yeah,
his biggest
uh,
games are going to be coming in November and December.
100%. Unless he's injured or he fumbles a punt or a snap or celebrates a touchdown prematurely or something stupid like that. I'm could I don't bet, but I'd take that bet right there. His carries are going to be kind of his action. I think is going to be a weird. It's going to be like a heart monitor, limping along at the low rate, and then all of a sudden, or some Hayek walks in the room, and the heart rate's going to spike, and that's this Selma Hayek heart rate spiking is going to be December and January football. I all in on that.
Well, great. I mean, that's enough running back talk. I think, again, main takeaway is I love this running back room, and I feel way more confident in our ability to run the ball consistently this year than I did really at any point last year, because that was always the talking point about the inconsistency of our run game, and it bit us in the butt in those last two games. And I think we're going to be a much more balanced offense because of the experience and talent we have in this room. But going into another position group where it's really almost all new faces is the tight end room. And, Arthur Smith, he loves his tight ends. So we know we're going to see a lot of production out of this room. We have Nate Roberts, who's the favorite to be the starter. He was a 4-star in last year's recruiting class, had 4 receptions as a true freshman last year, but he did play in every game. He's 6'5", 240, versatile, the best pass catcher out of this bunch. Room to grow as a blocker, but he is up 2 inches and up 20 pounds since last year. So he's growing into his frame. We have Mason Williams, who transfers over from Ohio U. He had 45 catches and for 500 yards over the past couple seasons. Also 6'4", 250. Probably the best blocking tight end, and might be more of kind of like a fullback inline blocker type role. And then we have Hunter Welsing, who transfers over from Northwestern. He's in his 7th year of college, had 28 catches for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns last year. He played mainly on special teams before 2025, but another big dude, 6'3", 250. But he is, I think, probably the most refined route runner out of these guys, and I think his experience will allow him to thrive in like zone coverage, where he just has to kind of find those soft spots. And then our last tight end that'll have a significant role will be Bennett Christian. He's 6'6", 250, biggest guy out of the group. Had 5 catches last year. He was a 4-star recruit in the 2022 class. So 5th year at the program now. Question for you. I mean, I think Nate Roberts is kind of the way I've been reading it, is the clear starter, and then we're going to have a strong rotation. I think all 4 of those guys are going to see a lot of see a lot of the field. We know Arthur Smith loves 12 personnel. We have a deep tight end room and some question marks at wide receiver. I don't know if that's the best word, but some guys stepping into unfamiliar roles. So I could see a scenario where Jeremiah Smith and Devin McClain end up being our clear top two receivers, and we end up staying in 12 personnel like 50% of the time. So what do you think the chances are that Nate Roberts ends up becoming our like de facto wide receiver three?
In terms of number of catches,
Yeah, and targets.
no, zero, zero. Because it's a good question. It makes you think. I think he's going to get a lot of targets, a lot of balls thrown his way. But I think they have so many guys in the wide receiver room that can make plays that they want to get the ball to. We talked about Bo Jackson. We talked about Legend Bay. They have so many pass catchers for him to catch. So to be number three, he's going to probably have to have at least 35 catches in the regular season. That's three a game. And you have a good, just like we've said this a million times today, you have a lot of good pieces in that tight end room. And I just think they're going to keep him fresh, and hope he can have 20 catches in the playoffs and, maybe double his output. So I don't think so. I don't think he will be wide receiver three. I don't. Max.
Yeah, that's fair. I think a better question might be like, I guess, I think our tight end room as a whole might end up being our kind of de facto wide receiver three, like whoever's on the field, because I do think we're going to be rotating a lot. So I think that might be like clear if you add up, total up these four guys' receptions and yards at the end of the year and count them as one player. I think they might be the third leading receiver. But another question, because I think when you think about a Ryan Day offense, you go back to like, the 2021 offense where we were running 4 and 5 wide receiver sets all the time. But then you bring in Arthur Smith, who loves 12 and 13 personnel, which is when you have 2 or 3 tight ends on the field and 1 running back. So curious, what do you think we will see more of throughout the season? 12 and 13 personnel or 4 and 5 wide receiver sets? Because I think
Wow.
it's
Wow. That's a brain twizzler, man. Um, wow. Keep going. I interrupted your thinking,
No,
but
because
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I feel like it's, being an Ohio State fan and watching this team over, Ryan Day's entire career, I think would make me want to say 4 and 5 wide receiver sets, especially, we're gonna talk about it in a little bit. The depth we have at wide receiver, we have 5 guys that I think we're not gonna be afraid to roll out there, but I know what Arthur Smith likes. I know the talent we have in the tight end room. I know how they've been talking about it. Like I think we're gonna see 2 and 3 tight ends on the field more often than we're going to see 4 and 5 wide receivers on the field. And the more I think about it, I don't even think that it's going to be that close.
Okay. What I will say about tight ends, I'll put a package on my tight end bow or a bow, tight end bow on my tight end package. There you go. I think there's going to be dudes that, because of what you just said, there's going to be somebody. I mean, we've named them, but they're going to have a game or a moment, where it could be because Nate's off the field and Bennett Christian's on. But somebody is going to have some moments from that tight end room where we're going to be like, where did that cat come from? Or where did that catch come from? So that's my prediction on the tight end room.
Pivoting away from the tight ends, next up would be wide receivers. And I think if there's one position Ohio State fans know everything about, it's our wide receiver room. Obviously, we got Jeremiah Smith, the best wide receiver in all of college football. And then I think the likeliest to start alongside him week one are going to be Brandon Inniss and Devin McClain. We talked a little bit more about Devin McClain in our last episode. He's probably the most well rounded out of the remaining wide receivers. He has the speed and the ball skills to take the top off of defenses and can make difficult catches, but he can also play inside or outside. Great run after catch ability, which has been a big priority this offseason. And then Brandon Inniss. I think all of Buckeye Nation wants to see Brandon Inniss succeed and turn into a legitimate NFL prospect, but I also think most of Buckeye Nation seems to not really believe in him. Unfortunately, I'm probably siding with the majority. I just don't see the burst or the wiggle out of him that I thought I would. He kind of reminds me of JSN with 2 blown out knees, but it is, I think, safe to assume he will be the starter to start the year, and he will need to fight to keep his job. So he'll have every opportunity to go be a starter and be the prospect we all hoped he would be. And then outside of those two, we have Kyle Parker, who caught 30 passes for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns at LSU last year. He was a 4-star prospect in the 2023 class, and he might be the fastest wide receiver out of this whole bunch, although I'm sure Jeremiah would have something to say about that. Then we have the 2 true freshmen, Brock Boyd and Chris Henry, and then David Adolph will also be pushing for playtime. So the first question I wanted to pose to you, because like I said, Jeremiah, Brandon Inniss, and McClain will be the day one starters, but I'm curious how you think the starting lineup or the allocation of targets are going to change as the season goes on, because I think the receivers we see getting the most targets in the first couple of weeks are going to be very different to the receivers we see catching the passes in November, December, and January.
So let me respond to that. I'm going to start with some background. I do believe one of the weaknesses of Brian Hartline that Cortez Hankton was brought in to correct is you need to play more wide receivers. So automatically, I do think we're going to see like a 5 or 6 man wide receiver rotation for most of the season. And I do not think Brandon Inniss is Julian Fleming chapter 2. I don't. He's been playing in the shadow of first round NFL draft picks. It's his time to step it up. I think he's going to I expect him to have probably 40 plus receptions this year. And if you look at Ohio State over the last 2 years when he's played, they've chosen to throw to him the ball in some very critical moments when they knew Jeremiah was going to be doubled, when everybody in the stadium thought it's going to Jeremiah, whether it was against Penn State a couple of years ago, whether it was Michigan last year. He is going to get some big targets. He hasn't shown the ability to take a short ball and house it. So I think McGuinn from UTSA, the transfer, I think he may end up with more yards. I don't think he's going to get more catches. If he has more catches, that either means McGuinn is just killing it and he is a legitimate day 1 or day 2 draft pick in the NFL, or Brandon Inniss just stinks. And I don't think Brandon Inniss stinks at all. This team is focused on what they're doing in January. They would not play a guy they like over somebody that's got dripping, oozing potential. They're just not going to do it. It's simple as that. I do think I want to go on the record. My prediction, you did not ask this, but my prediction is sometime this season, Brock Boyd is going to have an Anthony Gonzalez jumping over the defensive back against Michigan 2005 moment. He's going to have it. I'd love it if it was in Austin the second week of the season, but mark my words, Brock Boyd is going to make some big plays this year. He is not going to just be mop-up time in the fourth quarter.
Hell yeah. No, I think everyone, I've ever seen a white boy have so much motion in Columbus since, I don't know, maybe Tate Martell. But I agree with everything.
Maybe Dane Sansabacher.
Oh, hell yeah. I agree with everything you said. I think one of my complaints about Ryan Day maybe in the past is I feel like he has kind of held on a little bit to wanting to play his seniors and kind of
loyalty. Some program loyalty,
I think
you put in your time.
Too loyal to seniors in some instances, and in the past, I think I'd be nervous that Brandon Inniss is going to stay on the field, even if he's struggling and not performing. But with the depth we have at receiver, like you talked about, I don't think that's going to be a concern this year. If the Texas State game comes and goes, and Brandon Inniss is being ineffective, he's has some drops, he's not breaking tackles or anything like that, I don't think Ryan Day is going to hesitate to sit him down. So he'll have his opportunities, but like I said, he will have to fight to keep his job. My other question about the receivers is...
Hold on there, though. Brandon Inniss isn't going to be dropping passes. It's just his ability to shimmy in the shape.
He dropped a beautiful over-the-shoulder throw from Julian Sayin against Texas week 1 last year.
Fair point.
But I think, it's fair to assume Jeremiah is going to lead this team in catches, yards, and touchdowns. So I'm curious how you think the yards, touchdowns, and catches will be divvied up behind him. Like, who will be second on the team in receptions, yards, and touchdowns? Because I will say, for as much hate as I'm giving Brandon Inniss right now, he'd probably be my pick to lead or be second in receptions, mainly because I think this entire team wants to see him succeed. He's likely to be a captain. So I think that there are going to be games, in probably our easier games like Ball State, Kent State, Illinois, Maryland in the first half of the season where he is just going to be peppered with targets. I wouldn't be surprised to see him have a double-digit catch game or two. And so even though I don't think he's going to be like our number 2 or number 3 guy at the end of the season, I think he'll have enough big games in there to lead this team in receptions. And even if he becomes like our 4th or 5th receiver, I think to your point about rotating guys, I think our 5th receiver could still be on the field for 40 or 50% of the snaps and still get 3 or 4 targets. So it's not like even if he does get overtaken by some of these younger guys, I don't think that's going to mean he's completely out of the game plan. So Innis would be my pick to be second in receptions. McClain is probably my pick to be second in yards. I think he, like I said, the most well-rounded, and I think he is likely to begin and finish the season as a starter. And then I would probably say Nate Roberts would be my pick to be second in touchdowns, just because I don't think he's going to be someone coming off the field in red zone situations. So that's how I would pick. Do you disagree anywhere?
I think the worst thing that happens to Brandon Innis is he's Jameson Williams in 2019. I think that's your worst.
Let's not give him too much credit. I mean
no, hold on. That think about how many passes. That dude Williams could flat out fly, no doubt. I'm not saying Innis is as fast. I think Innis is going to have more receptions, probably more touchdowns, and than Williams did that year. And I think that's your floor. And I think by the end of the year, if other dudes are making plays, Gus Johnson's going to have a call. There's that man again, Brandon Innis. You can't forget about him, the senior, making another play for these Buckeyes. That's what's going to happen. That I am confident of that. Book it. You heard it here. And I don't know quite what that voice is that I just did.
I was going to say Gus Johnson's been smoking some cigarettes in the offseason.
Yeah, and singing with Fats Waller or something. But yes, those are my 2 predictions.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I guess the only caveat I would say about, when I was predicting who would be second in yards, catches, and touchdowns, I do think that like the leaders we'll have after the regular season, after 12 games, will look different than the leaders at the end of the season, assuming we are playing another 3 or 4 games, in the Big Ten Championship and the CFP, because like you said, Brock Boyd and Chris Henry are going to earn roles. It's just a matter of when do they really step up into the offense, not if they step up. So I could see a situation where like Chris Henry, I'm probably higher on him than Brock Boyd, but I could see a situation where Chris Henry only has a handful of catches through October, but then he blows up at the end of the season and has a couple 100-yard games in the CFP and ends up as our second leading receiver. I could see a situation like that.
Absolutely. I completely agree.
Yeah, but as a whole, obviously we don't have another first-round pick opposite Jeremiah Smith like we have the past 2 seasons. I do think Devin McClain can play himself into being like a late day 2 pick. I think he'll do that, but he's not going to be a first-rounder. But the aggregate of our wide receivers 2 through 6 are stronger than they have been since Brian Hartline's been our coach, probably back since like that receiver group he had with, Benjamin Victor and Terry McLaurin. And we had a lot of guys that weren't necessarily great, but a lot of guys that could catch passes. So I think as a whole, even though we don't have a guy like Carnell Tate opposite Jeremiah Smith, I do think our wide receiver room, top to bottom, is stronger than it was last year.
Yes,
I am interested to see what Kyle Parker's role will end up being, because I feel like he's kind of the forgotten piece about this room, and he's a really good athlete.
We don't talk about. We don't talk about him. They haven't talked about him through 10 practices yet, so it'll be very interesting to see what happens.
But I think, again, like as a whole, I don't think there's a whole lot of worries about this wide receiver room. So I think that can take us into our final position group. And I think every Ohio State fan would agree the most important position group as it pertains to our 2026 success, and that's the offensive line. And as it stands right now, they haven't announced who the starting 5 will be, but it seems like it is leaning towards Ian Moore at left tackle, and then from left to right, Luke Montgomery, Carson Hinsman, Austin Seyerveld, and Phillip Daniels, with Josh Padilla probably being our top reserve. And then if a tackle goes down, Austin Seyerveld would then kick out to tackle, because they have talked about him this offseason, saying that he is a 4-position player. So it's nice to have like a Donovan Jackson chess piece that can kind of move around depending on who gets banged up. And then Gabe Van Sickle will probably be our second bench guy, another guard. So I think that, the the key to all this is what happens at tackle, because I think Austin Seierveld, if he does have to play tackle, it's okay. He's a serviceable tackle, but I think the best version of this offensive line is with Seierveld on the interior, and then Ian Moore blossoming into the prospect we all think he can be, and then Philip Daniels taking a step forward, because he played really well for 12 games last year, but then really struggled in those last 2 games. So and I think that's what the best pass forward is, for that to be our starting five, and then Josh Padilla being our top reserve. But curious what you think. What do you think the pecking order will be, or what your expectations are?
I'm the least knowledgeable person about offensive line play on this podcast. So I think you're right. It sounds like from, the stuff you're reading and seeing and hearing, it's going to be the more anchoring the left side and Seierveld at guard. I just know what I see. I want to see my running back 20 yards downfield before he's touched. That's what I want to see. I want to see Julian Sayin with like 10 or 12 seconds to find JJ 50 yards downfield. That's what I want to see. That's how I'll judge the offensive line. And that's stupid and immature and infantile, but that's what I want to see. If this team, I think having Seierveld at guard and next to the center, Carson Hinsman, those two would just like to hit people. So if they're road graders and Bo Jackson's getting into the linebackers before he's been touched, it's gonna be a good year. They're gonna put up a lot of points, and they'll be able to, I would like to see this team do what they couldn't last year. It's just run the ball consistently, not erratically, not counting on Bo Jackson to make a shimmy, shimmy, cocoa pop burst and make, some Michigan defender fall all over himself because the play's poorly blocked and Bo's just unnaturally gifted. I want to see Bo bursting in the secondary and having nobody in front of him, because the offensive line got to the second level and cleared out not only the D line, but the linebackers, and all he has to beat is a corner. That's what I'd like to see a little bit more.
Definitely. And I think this line is capable. Like, as far as just raw talent, I really like the guys we have on this offensive line. But the one thing that makes me really nervous is depth. And if we're banged up going into the playoff, if we're down a couple starters, I don't know if we have the depth to really keep this thing going like we had in 2024. Because a lot of these guys were on that offensive line in 2024, where we were just mauling people in the playoff. But again, my concern is the depth, and that's why my last question I have about this unit is, do you think the gauntlet we have, the incredibly hard schedule we have in 2026, will that help or hurt our offensive line for a CFP run? Because I think last year the easy schedule we had really hurt us. You can tell when we played Indiana, that was the first time we got punched in the mouth, and they had to go block guys that were as good as them on one-on-one, and they had to bring it every single snap. And same thing against Miami. They just could not hold up against those guys. And I don't think it was a talent problem. I think it was the fact that they just had not been through the ringer yet. And it's December now, and this is the first time they're getting punched in the mouth. So on the one hand, I think the hard schedule could really help this offensive line. It could get them used to physicality, and it could get them, iron sharpens iron type of thing. So I think that they could, maybe have some struggles during the season, but the hard schedule can get them in a position where they're playing their best football in December and January. But on the one hand, I can also see how this could hurt our offensive line, a line that does not have a ton of depth. And if we are playing these really tough defenses week in, week out, I could see a situation where we do get banged up, we're down a couple starters, limping into the playoff, and it's going to be the same story all over again, where Julian Sayin's running for his life. We can't throw the ball. What do you ultimately think? Will the hard schedule help or hurt our offensive line for a CFP run?
Unequivocally, 100%. There isn't anything higher. It's going to help. If you're playing Ball State, injuries can happen. And if they're down two or three starters, they're going to be in trouble. I do think Arthur Smith, everybody knows we need some depth. And I think Arthur Smith is a good schemer of plays. I mean, I think he's on the order of Chip Kelly. He will figure out what to do, but we do not. No Ohio State fan wants to go down two starters on the offensive line going into the playoffs or going into November. It just is not something that's good for any team. I don't care who you are, whether you play on Saturdays or Sundays. So I think it's unequivocally going to help. I think I hear you on Indiana and Miami, but I think that was more a function of they played their two best teams back to back with very little time off and didn't have time to learn from it.
That's a
And
good
I
point
think it
too.
was
I almost completely forgot how Brian Hartline was prepping for a job between across both of those games, and
yeah,
there definitely was
there's
not
that's a
100%.
reality. Yeah, that's a reality too. And they, they also played very slow. And I don't think they're gonna go. I think this year you're just gonna see a lot of different stuff from Ohio State. They're gonna play some tempo. When they have an advantage and they can press it, they're gonna press it. They didn't do that last year ever. If we've got a team on, I kind of, me in basketball, man. If you've got an advantage, don't call off the press. They can't get the ball over half court. Keep it going. Make them wave the white flag. Ryan Day is better than Urban Meyer in this regard. He has self-scouted himself from last year to this year. They're going to do a lot. They're going to play more depth on both sides of the ball. I think they're going to go slow, fast. I think they're going to go run. They're going to pass. Some games they may throw the ball 40 times and only run it 15. I think other games they're going to run it 50 and only pass it 15. Above all, they know they have Jeremiah and no one else does. So you got to keep that in mind. But the offensive line, if it gets banged up, we're in trouble. But I don't think that's going to be because they played a tough schedule.
Yeah.
I'd rather have them just beat their heads against good teams all season long. And then when they put their helmets on in December and January, they're like, we got this.
Yeah,
We got
that's
this.
fair. I
We've
mean,
had
that's a good point. Injuries can happen against anyone. It doesn't have to just be against the good teams. And again, I really like the personnel we have on this offensive line. If we stay healthy, I think we're unequivocally going to be a better line than next year. And yeah, I don't think we're in the business of predicting injuries. And I think if any offensive line in the country, if they lose 2 or 3 starters, they're going to be in a bind as well. So I think barring any, horrible injuries, I don't see a way that this offensive line isn't miles better than last year, and we're gonna have a better run game, which will open up a better pass game. And I just think I'm just loving everything about this offense. So I think we can move off the offensive line. I think all in all, I think we're expecting improvement really across the board in all position groups on the offensive side of the ball. Any
I think
final
this is going to
thoughts
be
on
the
the?
last thing on the
Yeah,
last thing on the offense. I'm going to echo something from podcast earlier. Is I think this is going to be an offense like it's going to be sort of like CJ Stroud like, which we haven't seen that offense for a while, where it's regularly you're kind of disappointed when they don't have 500 yards. You're kind of disappointed when they don't have 30 points at halftime. You may have to win some games 35-31, which we'll get to in a second. But I think that the offense is going to be back kind of like early Ryan Day years where it's just like, yeah, we hope we have a defense. And I think the defense is going to be top 5. So I think they're going to put points up on a lot of people.
yeah. No, that's a great segue too, because now that we've covered off all these positions, we can get into a quick schedule review and try to pin down our win-loss prediction here. Before we do, any final thoughts on the roster, or anything you got to get off your chest?
No, I got to get this off my chest. You know me as your father. I do possess superpowers, like Marvel comic book level superpowers. My superpowers, I chose to focus on college football. And as such, the clothes I wear, the things I say, the colors I wear during the week, the bike jerseys I wear during the week, the routes I ride during the week, where I watch the game, who I watch the game with, what I eat during the game, when I eat during the game, what color my beer is, not the label of the beer as well as the beer itself. That all matters. The incantations and the spells that I throw out there, they all impact the game. They do. You could say, well, Rob, if you know that, why didn't you focus on world peace or getting rid of poverty or curing cancer? I don't know. I'm a perverse, sick little man, and I chose to focus on football, Ohio State football. So, in doing this podcast, I knew we were going to get to a point where I'd have to start making predictions, and my superpowers start to betray me when I start to give voice to the fact that I have these superpowers and I just let that stuff out into the ether. So I'm going to have a hard time with this next segment, but I'm still all powerful. I just wanted you to know that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know the powers you got over there, and I will unburden you with having to make a formal prediction. So I'll let you give your thoughts, but I will own the official win-loss prediction, so it does not mar our season before it begins.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Powers intact.
Well, we can get into it then. I mean, we open the season in a couple of weeks at home against Ball State. I don't think we have to dive too deep into that. That'll be a win. And then we go to Texas in what's going to be another top 5 matchup. And honestly, the more I think about this game, the less nervous I really get. Obviously, they have Colin Simmons at defensive end. He's great. He's going to be probably a top 10 draft pick, but the fact is he did nothing against us last year, and their best defensive lineman outside of him is this dude, Lance Jackson, who's entering his second year at the program, and he's going to have to take a major step early in the season in order to be able to cause problems for us. Cam Coleman, their transfer wide receiver from Auburn, he's a great player, might be one of the 5 best receivers in college football, but they don't have a second offensive weapon that worries me. Arch is going to be a lot better than last year. That's a given, but I'm still more worried about his legs than I am his arm. I still think he's going to be inconsistent with his accuracy, and I've seen plenty of clips come out from Texas camp, and in a good number of them, I'm seeing inaccurate balls from Arch Manning. Texas also has a lot of question marks surrounding their offensive line. Their secondary is completely new, so I don't know if they're going to be able to bottle up this pass game like they have the past couple times they've played us. And so really, just top to bottom, there isn't an aspect of this Texas roster that makes me really nervous. They're good in a lot of places, but they're not elite, I think, in a lot of places. So again, if Arch Manning takes a big step forward and becomes the number 1 NFL prospect, people think we could be in a lot of trouble, but I'm not that worried about it. I'm also not that worried about the place we have to play. It's at Texas, but they aren't a particularly loud fan base. I think Ohio State's going to own at least 30% of that stadium. So I think this is going to be honestly play out very similarly to the last time we played at Texas in 2006, where it started off as a defensive showdown. We got the lead before halftime, really took control in the third quarter. Texas kind of rallied in the fourth quarter, but it is not enough. I kind of think that's how it's going to play out. I'm seeing like a 27-13, 30-17, 28-16 type game. But what are you thinking?
First thing, I want to correct you. That stadium is going to be at least 45% Scarlet. At least 45% Scarlet. It could be a freaking home game. It's going to be.
I don't doubt that. I mean, Ohio State fans are infamous for spending all their money on tickets.
Yes, and Texas fans are infamous for being rich, so they will look at the Benjamins, take the dollars from the folks in Ohio, and that's going to be. I actually think it's going to be 50-50. You heard us. Whether it was last week or 2 weeks ago, I don't think Texas is the best team in the state of Texas. I think Texas Tech is, and maybe TCU is second. Maybe an A&M, but I don't think Texas is the best team in the state of Texas. And I think Sarkisian needs this game. He needs it. He can lose to A&M. He can lose to Oklahoma. He cannot lose to Ohio State. Simple enough. 3 losses to them in 18 months. It is not going to play well with the fan base. He is going to be in a hot seat. He's going to be wearing asbestos underwear if Ohio State beats them. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on that dude. I wouldn't be surprised if on his press conference on Monday he's slurring his speech. Okay, that's unfair, but I think he's going to hit the bottle again because if he loses, there's just so much pressure on them. This game scares me. I mean, shoot, they played Voorhees, Sean. It would scare me. I'm going to be nervous for the Ball State game. I am, but there's a lot more pressure on Texas in this game than there is on Ohio State, and that gives me some comfort. Yeah, I'm not making a prediction, but
yeah, that's okay. I'll do it for you. I'm going to say we're going to win. So I think we got a 2-0 start to our schedule. Then we come back home to play Kent State. That'll be another win, and then we host Illinois. And listen, hold on.
That weekend, Kent State weekend. What's going on?
Oh yeah, I'm getting married too. The second most eventful item of the day, I guess.
No, come on. That's not. That's not fair.
Yes, no, I will be getting married September 19th, and I specifically chose that date because we're playing someone like Kent State.
Penn
Um,
State.
so
Yeah.
hopefully, Ohio State will bring me home a win on our wedding day, and then we come back home
I
against.
don't think you have to beg. I don't think you have to beg
You
for
know, you
that.
never
Other
know.
things in your
I've
life.
seen some horrors in my day, but then we're back home against Illinois, and usually I wouldn't love the idea of welcoming Brett Bielema to Columbus again. But listen, I mean, last year's Illinois team was the best team they've had since that Rose Bowl team in 2007. They have to replace Luke Altmaier, who's been their starter at quarterback for 3 years. I just don't see a way where this. I mean, it might be closer than we think because this could be a game that we're kind of sleepwalking into. In Illinois, Bielema's going to have his team, ready to play like their hair's on fire. But I'm not in a position right now where I'm going to predict a loss against Illinois at home. Anything to add there?
No, I think Burt Burns to beat Ohio State. He's going to have a few plays up his sleeve like he always does. That game was closer last year, I think, than the score indicated. But Ohio State still won going away, and that was at their place. Yeah, they'd already been humiliated by Indiana, but maybe what I'm saying this year is nobody in orange is going to beat Ohio State.
Yeah, fair enough.
Can I say that?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm saying that. Maybe I'm saying that. I don't know. I hope I just didn't. Superpowers are now melting down, and the force is not crumbling all over the world. But,
no, I think you're still safe. So that will take us to a 4-0 start, and then we travel to Kinnick Stadium to take on Iowa. And frankly, this game scares me more than the Texas game. Partially because the last two times we played there was in 2010, where we needed a comeback on the last drive of the game. 4th and 10 scramble by Terrell Pryor, and a crazy catch by Sanzenbacher to set up the go-ahead touchdown. And then in 2017, where Iowa just absolutely embarrassed us. And so, honestly, obviously, anytime you go to Kinnick, it's not going to be an easy game. They're going to have a good defense. They're going to play sound football. They're going to take care of the football, play fundamentally sound. But I was not that nervous because I was like, at the end of the day, Iowa has to outscore us. But then, I'm reading up on this quarterback battle they have going on. We talked about it a few episodes ago. Jeremy Hiklinski versus Hank Brown. Hiklinski was supposed to be the smaller, more mobile playmaker of the two, the one we said had moxie, and Hank Brown was supposed to be the taller pocket quarterback with a more consistent arm. But everything I'm seeing coming out of Iowa is that Jeremy Hiklinski is dominating this quarterback battle. He's better with his legs and with his arm. And now I'm starting to think if Iowa has a quarterback that can be a dual threat and push the ball downfield, they're going to be a nightmare, not only for Ohio State, not only for the rest of the Big Ten, but for the rest of college football. And there's a real chance if this quarterback is who they're talking him up to be, there's a chance that they could be a CFP team. So I'm officially nervous about this game, but talk me off a ledge here.
You should be nervous. I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's Kinnick, it's Iowa. I promise you this: I will not wear black and orange or black and any color bike jerseys that day like I did in 2017. I knew right away when I got home, oh my God, what was I thinking? You can talk to me all day about him spraying the ball downfield. Who's he throwing it to, Sean? You and Jake? I mean, because
that's a good point too. I don't know the last time Iowa's had a receiver that I've actually kept me up.
Both of you would start. You guys should just go to Ames right now. Go into NIL. You'll make more money, and just tell your respective wives, "Look, I'm pulling in $2 million a year starting for Iowa," and just catch a few balls. That's all you have to do. Who's it? I will be a buyer on Iowa when they prove they can score more than 24 points in a big game. They haven't done it. I mean, go out and find a farm boy throwing the ball in Field of Dreams. Come on. How hard is it? They haven't had a quarterback in forever that's worth it, that could start consistently for a MAC team. They haven't had that in like 10 years. I don't know what's going on. So Iowa, yes, should trouble you because they are fundamentally sound. They don't beat themselves. They're going to make Ohio State earn it. But I just, last time they played them, freshman year, admittedly was at home, but Jeremiah Smith posterized that dude. Remember?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. So it's I'm worried. I'm officially worried about the entire season, but Iowa's got it. I mean, unless Ohio State just completely lays an offensive egg, they scored 28 points. They're winning that game.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I do. What scares me, I think, is this could be a game where our offense throws out a clunker. But the thing that does kind of give me some comfort is that I don't think Julian Sayin is going to be turning the ball over much at all this year, and especially in a game like this. So again, this is going to be a tight game, no matter what. If we win this game by more than 2 possessions, I would take it as an absolute win. But I'll mark us down for a win in Kinnick Stadium. And then we come back home to play Maryland, and this game is wedged between road trips to Iowa and Indiana. So that does make me nervous how focused we're going to be to play a quarterback like Malik Washington, who we've talked about a decent amount on this podcast. He is one of the best quarterbacks in the Big Ten and probably the most underrated quarterback in all of college football. So it's not going to be a game we can just sleepwalk through because he's the kind of guy that can rip off 80-yard touchdowns if we don't have our head screwed on right and aren't focused on every single play. But again, like the talent disparity throughout the rest of the positions, I just think is too great. And again, I'm not going to sit here and predict we lose a home game against Maryland this year. So it could be closer than we expect, but I'm going to predict a win and a 6-0 start. Anything to add there?
No, I'm good. Keep rolling.
Cool. And then our last game before our bye week is that road trip to Indiana, going to be the biggest home game in Indiana history, potentially a 1-versus-2 matchup. Indiana does have road trips to Rutgers and Nebraska before this game, so they'll be kind of tested, but not to the extent that Ohio State is. And I want to say that Ryan Day just won't let us lose this game. And, he's going to have everyone looking out for revenge. There's a ton of guys on this team are going to be looking for revenge from last year. But I know that Curt Cignetti is not going to have a problem forming a chip on his team's shoulder, too. They're probably going to be ranked too low. They're probably going to be underdogs in this game. And so I don't think that motivation is going to be the real determining factor here. The fact is Indiana's offensive line might be the best in college football. They get Nick Marsh at receiver from Michigan State, who's a supreme talent. Charlie Becker next to him at receiver is going to be tough to guard. Kobe Martin is a great running back. And then we've talked a lot about their new quarterback, Josh Hoover, this whole summer. And, he's going to have a great season as well. Defensively, Indiana's secondary is definitely going to take a step back from last year, but you can still expect this team to be strong up front and fundamentally sound. So both teams, bottom line, are replacing a lot. And I think that this is going to be a barn burner of a game. I could see it being a shootout. I could also see it being a defensive matchup. No matter how you cut it, this is going to be a really, really good game, one I'm obviously nervous about. And I'm pretty stuck in the middle as to call it a win or a loss. So I won't put that onus on you. I will come to a decision, but what are your initial thoughts on this game?
I think you're absolutely right about Indiana. Cignetti is going to peel the paint off the walls of the Indiana locker room. They should have a chip on their shoulder. They should not be ranked number 6. Period. End of statement. They're probably going to be an underdog in that game at home. He's going to have them fired up. Okay. There's no doubt about it that Ohio State is going to melt the turf when they come out. They're going to be so focused and so on it that this is going to be a slobber knocker. There are 2 great weekends of the year in college football. This is one of them. We've said it a dozen times. I'll make it 1,001. No one's played a game yet. As long as Ohio State can run and pass, and they don't do these stupid formations to try and that they did last year against Indiana. I mean, you could think about it, Sean. They had Indiana beat, and they didn't play that well. Now, Indiana didn't play that well either, but Ohio State had them. Make a field goal, get a first down. That's all we're asking. They win that game.
Yeah, that's a good reminder too that I think what made Fernando Mendoza such an incredible quarterback was his ability to save his best play for when they needed it most. Like his fourth quarter heroics, not only against Ohio State, but throughout the entire season was really, really special. And Josh Hoover, I know Curt Cignetti's talked about he's going to get his interceptions down, but Curtis Rourke and Fernando Mendoza both came to Indiana without a turnover problem. It's not like he really had to work that hard. Josh Hoover is incredibly talented, but he's turned the ball over a lot the past couple seasons, and I'm sure Curt Cignetti is going to help him improve, but I don't know if we can count on him to be the same steady fourth quarter hero that Fernando Mendoza was. So honestly, I'm going to mark us down for a win here because it's going to be a great game. But I think the difference is our quarterback is experienced in positions like this, and I think I can trust him to hold on to the ball and not make a game-losing play. And I can't say quite the same for Josh Hoover. So I will do it
Harry,
for you. I'm
I'm
going to
gonna
mark this
go.
down as a win.
I'm not gonna go on win or loss. Josh Hoover will throw a pick six.
Yeah, I mean, if we have a defensive touchdown in a game like this, I think that'll be all the difference we need. So I like that production. I'll mark it down for when we get to that week. But so we got a 7-0 start now, according to our podcast. We finally get our bye week, which I think is timed perfectly because then we have to go across the country to play USC. If we didn't have a bye week before this, I would be a lot more nervous. But I love that would have been tested so much prior to that. We'll know exactly where weaknesses are, what needs addressed. We'll be able to get healthy. And the bottom line is USC's defense doesn't scare me enough. And I think Matt Patricia, with an extra week of work, will be able to cook something up to expose Jaden Mayava. King Miller, their running back, could hurt us. I could see him, picking up some yards. But to your point, I think that might be the defense's MO. They're going to give up some chunk plays, but they're also going to have some splash plays back. So I just, when I close my eyes and picture this game, I have a really hard time seeing us get off this field with a loss, especially considering, we talked about Texas's home field advantage. USC is going to be playing a road game here because, this stadium is going to be 60% Ohio State fans at least.
Yeah, and I just pulled off USC's schedule. So it is going to be a hard game. The thing that makes it really hard for me to predict is I don't know what to expect of USC. I don't. I could see them being undefeated and this being a 1 versus 2 matchup. I could, 100%. Ohio State will be rested. They get to travel to the West Coast. They don't have to go right away after playing Indiana. But here I'm looking at their schedule. Sean, this is what they play before Ohio State: Oregon, Washington, Penn State, Wisconsin, then Ohio State. That is a murderer's row. If they are undefeated, if they go through those series of games undefeated and are playing Ohio State, that is a monstrous game.
Yeah, then there will be reason to be nervous. That means that the question marks that I'm throwing out there will have been answered if they can go undefeated.
Yes.
But I'm not going to go out on a ledge and say they will be.
I just don't know what to expect of them. That's a tough gauntlet to go through for a team that has left something to be desired the last 4
a team that hasn't had a signature win like that since Lincoln Riley's really been there. I'll mark us down for a win. So that's an 8-0 start. And then we come home against Oregon, which, again, this could potential to be like our third 1 versus 2 matchup of the season. And I'll get ahead of this now. I'm going to predict a loss here because I think this is just exactly the kind of game that Dan Lanning wins. I think if we are right and we're 8-0 heading into this matchup with that schedule, we're going to be crowned by every man, woman, and child that watches college football. And Dan Lanning is going to have his team playing like this. It's a Super Bowl. So many of the guys that were embarrassed in that Rose Bowl are still on this team. They'll be looking for revenge. And it's just like, obviously, this is going to be a really evenly matched game. Oregon's got one of the 5 most talented rosters in college football, right up there with Ohio State. And it's just a gut feeling that I just have a hard time picturing this win. And honestly, through all the games that we've mentioned so far, I have a really hard time seeing us get to 9-0. So I feel like there's a loss somewhere, and I just feel most comfortable pinning it here.
I understand that. This is a team that's also beaten Ohio State. A program that's beaten Ohio State and Columbus. Yep. They did it, CJ Stroud. I'm looking at their schedule. They play at Illinois, come home and play Northwestern, and then Ohio State goes there. They're going to be better rested than USC will, but that is a hard trip. And they're going to have no fans there. They'll have that little pocket in the southwest corner of the stadium. That's what they're going to have. And there might be a few other green or yellow jerseys in there. They're also going to be playing, you can say you hope not. It's going to be a 12 noon kick, which is 9 o'clock for them. They're going to have a rough go travel-wise. I am reasonably confident 3 months out, but Who knows?
Yeah. I think
I
most
don't.
of this just boils down to, I mean, this is our 9th game of the season. If we're 9-0, then you can probably just cancel the season and crown us because if we go through 9-0, I don't think there's a single team in the country that can hold a candle to us. So I just really feel like we got to pump the brakes somewhere. So maybe it's not Oregon. Maybe we do stub our foot in Kinnick. Maybe we're, underestimating Arch. But I feel like an 8-1 start it just sounds right to me. But it's going to be a tough game, a winnable game, no matter what way you dice it. But then our final 3 games, Northwestern comes to Columbus. I'll mark that down as a win. I think following up those 2 tough games with a home game against Northwestern is just, big trap game, probably closer than we think. But, again, I'm not going to predict that Northwestern comes to Columbus and beats us. Then we have a road trip to Lincoln, which I absolutely hate the timing for this game because it's right before the Michigan game, and we could absolutely lose focus and stub our foot against a team that could be fighting for a college football playoff appearance or could just be playing a spoiler for us. Either way, they'll be plenty motivated. But ultimately, I'm not that nervous because I think that their offense is going to be, a struggle bus once again. And we talked in the last week's episode about Matt Rule's struggles at Nebraska in the month of November. I don't think he was going to get over that trend that we've seen against Ohio State at home. And then that'll take us into the Michigan game, where I don't want to spoil too much about what we'll talk about in our next episode when we give a broader college football preview. But the more I think about Michigan, the more I think that they're going to be a mediocre team at best. And I'm thinking, I wouldn't be shocked if they still have, they only have 2 losses coming into this game and they're playing for a chance to get into the college football playoff. But I think what's more likely is they have 4 or 5 losses coming into this game. And I just think the way that Kyle Whittingham and Bruce Underwood have been talking about the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry in recent weeks, talking about it like it's just another game, that only makes me more confident. So I'm going to predict a win there. And frankly, even if I was really nervous and thought that Michigan would beat us, I would not even say it. Just for the reasons that you said, I'm not going to put that out into the ethos. So I got us finishing 11-1 then. But any final thoughts on those games I just went through in the Michigan game?
I'm just looking at Nebraska's schedule. They go Indiana, Oregon, Washington, Illinois. Then they have a break. I mean, some may say a break with Rutgers, and then they play Ohio State. So they could be woe begone. If they're going to lose to Indiana. They're going to lose to Oregon. If they have any other losses earlier, I mean, they play. I don't think they play anybody they can't beat prior to that. So those are 2 losses. They lose to Washington. That's 3. That Illinois game is going to be critical.
Yeah, because if they lose to Illinois and Rutgers, Matt Rule is probably not going to be on the sideline for our game.
Right. Well, and if they split Illinois, they beat Rutgers, lose to Illinois, they're going to have 4 losses going into Ohio State. And yes, they're going to be up to play. That stadium's going to be filled. The greatest fans in college football. I mean, from a loyalty perspective and turning up, even when they stink, it could look a lot like Ohio State, Nebraska 2024. Or Ohio State, Nebraska, when they had Adrian Martinez freshman year. Both were narrow escapes for the Buckeyes. So could it be that? Yeah, I absolutely do. Because it's where it's placed on the schedule right before Michigan. It could absolutely be a trap game. I don't think it's going to be a losing effort. And then the Michigan game scares me every year. I hear you about them being 7-5. I've predicted on this show that I think Tommy Carr or the other backup will be starting come Halloween, and Bryce will be on his way to the bench and out of Ann Arbor. That's one of my hot takes. But if Bryce is good, we're sleeping on Michigan. They're going to need that game to make the playoff. They do, Sean. It's hard to understate how bad a head coach Sharon Moore was. I mean, it's not hard to understate how bad a human being he is. But they think about all the stuff he was doing, but not coaching football. So they're going to be they should be better with Whittingham. And if Bryce is a 65% passer this year, they might be 1 or 2 loss team going into that game. I'm liking my chances, but it's going to be, the 4th or 5th slobber knocker of the year for Ohio State. That's what I think.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. So I got us down for 11-1. I think with the schedule would be a resounding success. Should be good enough to get us back into the Big Ten championship game, and the result of that game would probably be the determining factor in whether or not we're a top 4 seed. Frankly, I don't know if I want the top 4 seed given how we played coming off of that bye week, but that's a conversation for another day. So I think that'll do it for our preview of Ohio State. But any final thoughts on this team before we get into the post-game spread?
No, I mean, I feel this is a genuine meat grinder, no empty calorie schedule. So them going even 3 losses, I think probably gets them in the tournament. But 11-1, they're going to be ranked in the top 4.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we'll have plenty more time to break down kind of where Ohio State will end up in the playoff and the other Big Ten teams that'll make it on the next episode. But I think we can put a bow on this, a nice in-depth preview for Ohio State's 2026 season, and I feel confident. Let's get into the post-game spread where we talk about something that we are each enjoying in in our lives that we want to share with each other and our listeners. Dad, what have you been enjoying since our last recording?
My brother, other than your company, my fine fellow, I did want to do one. I wanted to correct myself. I mentioned Bob Diaco when I was killing Ward Manuel in our last episode. He is actually coaching in football, and he's bounced around since he left UConn. He is currently the defensive line coach for the North Carolina Tar Heels. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. There's a good chance he could be in line to be head coach soon, given the way things are going there. But he is coaching. I said he wasn't, and he is from New Jersey. So I wanna give props to our Jersey. One thing, your mom and I have been watching. We've been streaming a show on Apple TV called Lucky. It stars Anna Taylor-Joy from Queen's Gambit, and she was also in Peaky Blinders. And most people know her probably for the former rather than the latter, because she was only in on a few seasons of the last episode or last year of Peaky Blinders. But it's a very good show. I mean, it's a trifle. I mean, it is a chase movie. She's getting chased by the mob, by the law, preposterous situation she wiggles out of, like a comic book hero like me with my superpowers. But it's enjoyable watch. It's, turn it on, you watch it. The dialogue is good. The plot is believable enough. It's a good 45-minute watch. And then I was, Ted Lasso has also dropped on Apple TV, and I was engaging with a banker friend of mine, and I want to harken back. It's not a new song at all, but the song Kansas City came up and was played in episode 1 of this 4th season of Ted Lasso, which is technically by the New Basement Tapes, but it is Marcus Mumford, and Marcus Mumford and the New Basement Tapes found a bunch of unfinished lyrics and songs of Bob Dylan's. They recorded going back to Kansas City, which is a great song and sort of the theme, not sort of, it is the theme song for Ted Lasso. And it reminded me the origin story of what is probably my favorite song. And I think, Sean, might be your favorite song. It's Wagon Wheel by the one and only Old Crow Medicine Show. Like, if you're going to come in here with the hootie and say he wrote that song and that's my favorite version, just check yourself before you wreck yourself and get off of our podcast, because we don't need you.
Yeah, you can enjoy that version all you want, but he sure as hell did not write that song.
No, he didn't write it, and it's inferior by every measure. I love Hootie. He golfs down the road for me, but there's no way that's a better rendition. And he's just, every time you hear it, ladies and gentlemen, he is making Old Crow Medicine Show rich.
All right. No, I love it. Thank you for sharing that. For me this week, I went to In-N-Out Burger this past weekend. One of the benefits of being on the West Coast now, I've always been interested by it. And it wasn't my first time having it, but I felt like I could finally share my thoughts. First of all, In-N-Out Burger, it is awesome. It's definitely worth having if you're near one and haven't had one before. But I'll say their burger does not compare to Five Guys. Five Guys is still my favorite fast food burger, and especially the fries. Like the In-N-Out burger itself was good, and their milkshake is awesome, but their fries kind of suck. And the Cajun fries at Five Guys are unmatched. But I will say, if there's only one burger joint I could go to for the rest of my life, it wouldn't be In-N-Out, and it wouldn't be Five Guys. It would be Swenson's, hailing from the great state of Ohio. I don't think they have any locations outside of Ohio, but it's if you ever find yourself in the state and you see one, you got to go try it. They got a great burger. Their shakes are amazing, and all their sides they have are pretty unmatched. So just wanted to drop some burger knowledge on our viewers this week. But I think that'll wrap us up for today. Any final thoughts for our viewers before we sign off, other than your typical be nice and use your blinker?
Well, all good things must come to an end, my friend. But I'm telling you right now, your turn signals almost never burn out. Use them. So until next time, be nice, stay curious, be friendly, and make tomorrow better for somebody in your orbit.
Hey, how sweet. Stay curious. That's a new one.
Try new clothes, my man. Try new clothes.
Yeah, no, I like it. Well, this has been a pleasure as always. Thank you, everyone, and anyone that's out there listening. This has been the Father, Son, and the Holy Buckeye podcast. And until next time, I don't know what I'm saying to sign off.
Peace out.
Yeah.
Peace out.
Stay safe,
Peace
everyone.
out.
We'll catch you here next time.
Horns down. Peace out.